Good day. Early in the development of the role-playing game, there arose two disparate philosophies. The first was that of the hardcore RPG. These were games filled with arcane rules governing everything. They required the player to truly understand the game before playing it. They were based around the concept of the player adapting to the game. Once you adapted to the games were satisfying in their own way. The second philosophy was that of simplicity. The games would still have challenges to overcome, but the player was considered the top priority. The menus were simplified, and the rules and interactions with the game world were streamlined for ease of use. Both philosophies are valid, and both have their adherents. For myself, I have always been a non-hardcore gamer. I like pick-up-and-play sort of games. Give me Doom, not Arma, and give me Fallout New Vegas, and not Fallout 1. I understand why hardcore games are what they are, but I have no desire to fight user interfaces or die to rats or wolves in the first 2 hours of gameplay. But with that in mind, I have always admired the ways that hardcore RPGs immerse the player into the world, and I've always wanted an RPG to bridge the gap between hardcore complexity and streamlined pick up and play. At long last, we have such a game. Outward, a game that gives the player a hardcore experience while making it approachable for a non-hardcore gamer. Outward was developed by Quebec Studio 9 Dots and published by Deep Silver on March 26, 2019. Today, we are looking at an older version of the game as I recorded this footage before the release of the definitive edition, which as of this recording I have not played. That edition was released on May 17, 2022 and features a few new game mechanics and improved graphics, but is pretty much the same game as the one we are looking at today. Outward is a third-person behind-the-back open-world RPG set in the fantasy realm of Rai. In this game, you will complete quests, delve into dungeons, and hunt hyenas for meat and skins. Combat in this game is somewhat inspired from Dark Souls. It is real-time and requires fast reflexes. You have access to a lot of choppas, swords, axes, spears, and maces. You can equip a shield to block incoming attacks. Like with Dark Souls, you lock onto an enemy and you then circle around them and dodge attacks with a roll move. There are also ranged weapons such as bows and guns. Bows have good range and do excellent damage. Guns have shorter ranges due to the only guns in the game being handguns and not rifles, but they do a good amount of damage per hit. But they have much longer reload times than the bow. The game features a magic system that is very hardcore. Before you can even use magic, you have to travel to a distant mountain, fight your way past foul beasts, and touch a ley line and sacrifice some of your health for mana. Magic is complex. You have to combine sigils with different elements to pull off a spell, or you have to combine an item with a power and then pull off a spell that way. The magic system is extremely deep, and I recommend checking out the Outward Wiki for spell recipes. I personally never used magic myself all that much, but I found one spell that worked well enough. Flammenwerfer! Have an open flame equipped like a torch or a lantern and set the world on fire. It's not that powerful, but it works in some instances, especially against squishy humans. Magic is really good for fighting tough enemies, or conversely, you can do what I did and shoot everything in the face. Combat is hardcore until you figure out what works best for you. You have many different types of enemies to fight, and humans are by far the easiest, but you can still potentially die to the absolute weakest bandit if you are not careful. Monstrous enemies can kill you easily and laugh at your sword blows, and some monsters can actually heal themselves. But an arrow to the face will usually cure what ails anything. Sometimes discretion is the better part of valor, and just running past will get you a better outcome. Monster infighting is something that can happen as well, and is a viable tactic for survival. Unlike in Dark Souls, there is no quick health item, so you'd better pack a bunch of healing items if you want to survive. On normal difficulty, you cannot die. Instead, you get knocked out, but you can get up again. The game will either send you back to the start of the dungeon or all the way back to town. And since this game is positive and likes the player, the game over messages will usually be someone helping you, and if you die enough, the game even gives you a special potion called Gep's Drink to help you out. When you die, you will lose nothing, but you will still need to heal yourself. Outward is not really focused on leveling up. you can go to trainers, and they can potentially increase your health and damage if you pay them enough, but not every trainer will increase your health or damage. Some will just give you abilities. You have 3 what are called breakthrough points. Some trainers will be able to get you higher abilities, but you can only break through to them 3 times. And these follow the standard fantasy conventions of warrior, rogue, mage. Depending on how you play, it may not really matter that much though, as arrow to the face is arrow to the face. Outward is outwardly very much a hardcore game, but every hardcore element is backed up by a philosophy where the player is key. For combat, you have magic and stamina and health. All 3 are finite, and all 3 can potentially not fill up to full even if you heal. For mana, you have to sleep, but you can't sleep too much. For stamina, if you use too many abilities, you will eventually run out. For health, you can heal, but you can only heal up so much. This might seem annoying at first glance, but potions exist that allow you to immediately go to full stamina, health, and mana just by chugging them down, and they aren't that expensive, and silver is fairly easy to acquire. Unlike in other RPGs, you have to put all your shit somewhere. You don't just shove a 12-foot long spear where the sun don't shine. Instead, you shove it in a backpack. In order to carry your gear, you have to have a pack, and these are easy to find and buy, and the game starts you off with one that can hold a decent amount of crap. You can only have one backpack at a time, and when you get a new one, you just dump the old one on the ground. At no time can you ever lose your pack, even if bandits knock you out. Some armors will have pouches where you can hold even more shit, and literally in the first 5 minutes of the game, you can get an armor that has 14 slots for stuff. Before fighting, you will need to drop the pack so you can move faster, and like in Dark Souls, the lighter you are, the more maneuverable you will be. Despite Outward having a map and compass, there are no quest markers in the game, and Outward does not have a fast travel system. This is remarkably immersive and not annoying. The game maps are huge and expansive, but just small enough that your trek back to town is not horribly difficult or really boring. This gives you that hardcore sense of questing without holding down the walk button for 20 minutes. While there are no quest markers, figuring out where to go is not that difficult. There are plenty of landmarks to guide by, and quest information is explicit enough that you should be able to find out where to go without it being really annoying. If my non-hardcore self can find it, you can. This game has a needs system where you need to eat, drink, and sleep, tend to wounds, deal with illnesses, watch for food spoilage, and dress appropriately. Sounds annoying, right? Sounds really tedious, right? Well, remarkably enough, food is easy to find. And once you get access to travel rations, food is no longer an issue. Travel rations are cheap and plentiful and can be made out of just about anything and spoil very slowly. Just stock up on the hardtack and never go hungry again. Water is also easy to find, and water skins are plentiful and weigh next to nothing. You can fill them up from rivers and the coast and then boil the water to make it safe. But not only do you get water from that, you get salt with which to preserve food. Just make sure you don't hit the wrong button and have your dude drink some ocean water and then get indigestion. Yes, that can happen. If you do get sick, all you gotta do is buy some herbal tea and it will go away. And the tea is cheap and easy to find. Wounds can be healed with bandages and sleep, and you can sleep in a tent or on a bedroll. Once you get a good pack, you can carry a fancy tent that regenerates stamina, and sleep is no longer an issue. Just be sure to make sure you set up enough time to guard so you don't get shanked. There are different biomes that require different clothes, and different biomes will have different seasons. If it's cold, dress warm. If it's hot, dress cool with a leather jacket. The clothes are easy to find and purchase, and there is a magic power called elemental resistance that reduces the penalty of having the wrong clothes on. The game features the now standard crafting system. There are recipes that you can buy and ones that you can learn by trial and error. The first armor in the game can be learned by trial and error, but others need recipes to be completed. You can also have weapons and armor created by a blacksmith if you gather the materials and pay him enough. You can craft by yourself out in the open, or you can craft more specific stuff with different items. You can also make various anime-esque weapons from dead enemies' body parts, Monster Hunter style. The crafting is quite robust, and I primarily used it to make arrows to shoot people in face. The game features an economy wherein silver and gold is used. You sell loot for silver, and if you get enough silver, you can buy gold bars. Why? Because silver has weight, and 1 gold bar is lighter than the equivalent silver. Day and night systems have been a staple of open world games for a while, but they never got that dark without mods. Outward, however, has the night actually be dark, and the caves and dungeons are also as dark as Doom Bloody 3, and to navigate you will need a lantern or torch. The torches are super easy to make, and lanterns are found everywhere, and mini packs will allow you to attach one to them. This is just yet one more way that the game immerses you into the world. Outward features a number of factions to join, and each will have their own quests, and those quests are timed, and if you take too long, you will get a negative ending. But the game will continue regardless. With that in mind, you have plenty of time to finish them, and I didn't fail a single one. It's not like they gave you 6 seconds to cross 8 maps and find a hidden cave. It's generous enough that you can actually look around without fear of failure. The game does feature a pretty okay dialogue system. You do have a good number of dialogue options, and you can sometimes talk your way out of trouble, and sometimes you're going to need a walkthrough to figure out what to bloody well say. It's only pretty okay due to the fact that most of the time you'll be shooting Bandit in face instead of talking, but what's there is remarkably good, even if I would have liked there to have been a little more of it. The game features a few big maps to explore and has fairly large and expansive cities to buy crap in, and the whole world feels big and realistically sized. Thank you, PC! You can own homes, and the first one just requires the completion of a super easy quest, and another just requires the player to join a faction. The game by default allows you to continue after you beat the game, and there is a good amount of end-game content. In addition to all of this good shit, it even has multiplayer. Now, I have not played the multiplayer, but I definitely want to. It has both online and split screen. But it gets better. In single player, even though this is a game kind of set up for multiplayer, you can, unlike in any of the Dark Souls games, actually pause the game. Truly, these developers were disciples of the machine god. This game should be quite fun in multiplayer as you get attacked by numerous enemies, and bosses would be even more fun with a partner. The Definitive Edition introduces a city building minigame, but as I've only completed the original edition, I can comment no further on it. Outward has all the great things one wants from a hardcore game with none of the hassle and tedium, and it bridges the gap between hardcore and pick up and play. Graphics for Outward are quite good and turn me on. Just look at those sweeping vistas. Each map is exquisitely detailed and feels like another world. Your character model is filled with nice details and all the outfits look great. Textures are also quite good as well, and none of them feel low res, and they scale nice to higher screen resolutions. Human models look pretty good, even if they are not animated to have lip flaps, and the faces are definitely indie game. The lighting is great, and you really feel a sense of transition between the day and night cycles. The enemies are also well detailed, and they're not just the same boring bandits over and over again. And even then, the bandits that do show up look pretty good too. The Definitive Edition has slightly improved graphics, but it's not a major overhaul. As this is a hardcore styled game, you got a lot of things you're going to be doing, and you're going to need a lot of controls to do it. If you got this on a console, good luck, because those controllers just don't have quite enough buttons. I played this primarily with a controller due to typing all day at work, and I found myself going back and forth at times between the keyboard and mouse and controller because I just didn't have enough buttons. And thankfully, unlike with Bethesda games, you can swap between the two on the fly. The biggest issue with using a controller is that you don't have nearly enough quick slots, and you will need to go into the inventory during combat to get a bloody healing item because you can't have one saved to a quick slot because you need it for something else. And don't even try to do magic with a controller either. It's truly an exercise in frustration. You can beat the game with a controller, I did, but if you can use keyboard and mouse, do so. The old PC port for the game is damn good. I had no crashes to desktop, minimal texture pop-in, and the loading was remarkably fast for such a complex game. I played it in 2K maxed out and got 60 frames per second most of the time. I got some frame dips during some interior segments where the lighting kind of like to go nuts, and as of this time, I do not know if the definitive edition fixed that or not. You get multiple save slots so you can have different playthroughs, and the game uses the Dark Souls styled constant quick saving, and it is quite fair, and I never lost any gameplay when I decided to stop playing. Now if only Bethesda could follow 9 dots and make a halfway stable game without years of fan efforts. Music for the game is transcendent. This is some of the best music I've heard in an RPG in general. It's music that gets you inspired to explore the world and uncover its mysteries. The track playing here is by far my favorite. Jean-Francois Ravine, Gene Ravine, what do you expect? I'm from Texas. English gets brutalized too. Old Genie Boy crafted not just a great soundtrack, he created an essential part of Outward's gaming experience. The game would not have been as good as it is without Mr. Ravine's soundtrack. This is a score that will stick with you for life. Every track is a masterpiece, and every track fits into its place in the game. And it's well worth listening to outside of the game. The game has classical VA work. The actors are probably the devs themselves, and they do alright. And like with Baldur's Gate, they only speak some of the dialogue, and the rest is left in text. Which is fine enough, as Gene needed all the money to make that soundtrack so awesome. Story in the game is important, but Outward wants you to be outward exploring, and the game has deep lore that one must find on one's own. The game is set in the fantasy world of Arai during an indeterminate time period. There are ruins and items found in the world that implies this may be a post-apocalyptic world, and you can talk to certain NPCs that kind of confirm this. There are 4 main factions: the Blue Chamber, the Heroic Kingdom, the Holy Mission, and the Sorabor Academy. None of these factions are the evil faction, and all are more or less basically good. The Blue Chamber Collective is the faction that the player starts in. They're the largest faction on Arai, and they place great importance on family, and all family members are one's tribe, and thus family punishment is meted out upon entire bloodlines. The blood price is a repayment of silver to a wronged party, and this continues on through the bloodline. It is said that the Blue Chamber has kept the peace due to seeing conflict as wasteful, and most clans hold some allegiance to it. The Heroic Kingdom of Levant is a splinter group of the Blue Chamber. It is a group of idealists that want to free the population of the Blue Chamber from their obligations of blood. They believe in the supremacy of the individual over the state. The Holy Mission of Lotz is a religious community that worships the god Lot and follows the 3 pillars of the Endless Path. No one should suffer. Help those in need, especially those weaker than you. No one is safe. One must be disciplined if they are to survive the outside world. No one is perfect. One must always strive to improve themselves so that they can better protect themselves and others. They are generally accepted as peacekeepers across Arai and are more or less the Jedi Knight equivalent. The Soraborian Academy is a place of learning. You will find a Soraborian merchant now and again, and you can travel with him if you have food and money. For this retrospective, we will be looking at my preferred playthrough as a holy brother of the Mission of Alat. You have lived in Cicero all your life, but your blood debt lies heavy. Your grandmother did some nasty in the pasty, and thus you still struggle under the burdens of past sins. Oh dear. You take on an adventure to a faraway land to make some dosh to pay off the debt, but you are now only lucky to be alive when your ship strikes some rocks and sinks. From the very first screen, the game is remarkably helping you out. You can be ready to adventure in like 10 minutes if you explore just a little bit. You win the prologue when you talk to the character named Yazan, and by that point you should already have a backpack, a water skin, some weapons, and a starting armor. So you get back to Cicero, and the town decides to blame you for your ship hitting some rocks, even though you weren't the pilot. They say that you have to cough up a shit ton of money, or you're out on your ass. One thing you will find is that this is no dark fantasy adventure where everyone is a dick. Most everyone, even the bloody guards, will be civil, and the leader of Cicero will stick up for you and give you 5 days to get some silver. an absolutely piddly amount of silver that equals a grand total of 150 coins. This quest could look hard, but the game gives you every chance to succeed. For one, you can loot the entire town, and the guard at the gate gives you 1 skill for free. So to achieve this quest, you can kill some trash mobs and loot some crap, or you can give a bandage to a random NPC for a writ of tribal favor. Kill the trash and keep the writ for later. After saving your awesome and expansive home that is filled with goodies, the game proper begins. You can piddle around for as long as you like, and there are some newbie quests as well. There is one quest that starts up after you've piddled around for a little while where you have to save the town of Cicero. There are some rumblings of war. Some bandits want to sack the town and you have to stop them. Due to the open-ended nature of the game, I finished the quest without even realizing it. You will be attacked by bandits, and if you lose, some of them will drag you away to their fortress where you have to escape. And as you would expect, I escaped and killed all the bandits, only to return to Cicero with a shit ton of loot, and I'm met by the gate guard who says, "Congratulations!" I was like, thanks, I guess. I totally meant to save the town and didn't just want to kill some trash mobs. So in First Town proper, you have a few friends. Yazan, he wants to join the heroic kingdom and get out of that one chocobo town. And then you got your waifu, Oriel. She wants to join the holy mission, and since the holy mission most aligns with my values, I decided to join it. However, you don't get to have any sexy time. This game does not feature any companions or romances. So if you decide to join the holy mission, you have to set off for the town of Monsoon in the Hallowed Marsh. The journey is harsh and unforgiving, but the game does have a path you can follow to get to town. Joining the holy mission is easy enough. You can complete 1 of 3 fetch quests, and then you are in. Lotz is an actual god that you can talk to, and he gives you a boon when you join. And at this point, your epic journey begins. So remember, you are just a guy, a dude, a regular everyday person. You are not a chosen one. You're just a simple man trying to make his way through the universe. So you don't become a physical god after 5 fetch quests. Your first quests have you paired up with your waifu, as in she goes ahead to the location and you catch up with her. Each quest will have a win and fail state, so you better play good, otherwise you'll have to live with a bad ending. All around the continent of Arai, there are these big giant glowing things, and your first quest is to figure out what they're set up for. And it turns out they have been set up by the Holy Mission and are used to keep chaos, the corruption at bay. The game gets a bit darker, but still positive enough. The Vigil Pylons, as they are called, have the soul of a dead warrior stabbing chaos beasts for all eternity. And this is done in order to keep the chaos beasts from coming back to life and killing everyone. You will find chaos beast bodies all over the game, and considering how squishy you are, they're pretty scary, especially when you consider how hard it is to kill even a bandit. OEL is pretty shocked by this revelation, and that's a fairly normal reaction. In fact, everybody in the game is remarkably sane when weird shit like this happens. When she learns about these warriors entombed for all of eternity, she declares that she wants to stop chaos, or corruption once and for all. You then get tasked with finding some corrupted tombs. You got 30 days, and that is more than enough time, thankfully, because you're gonna die a lot. The tombs are in a cave being guarded by a fucking Wendigo, and not the one from X-Men either. I spent what felt like hours trying to kill that bastard and still couldn't do it. And the cave is filled with dozens of high-level enemies. The best thing I have to say is just run past. But then you get a quest to open a door, and this is where the story really gets good. You gotta pick up some dead guys' bones to open a portal to the corrupt tombs. Alas, in my 10 hours of gameplay footage, I did not have this quest due to a corrupted recording, but the story for the dead guy is quite good and a bit humorous. After you decorrupt the tombs, you then move on, but Oliel gets mutated by a lat, and she gets glowing arms. What's kind of funny is that in the recording that got corrupted, I died to some ghosts that will spawn. But even if you die, you still end up winning the quest. The next quest kicks off a major plot point of the game, although as a simple man making his way through the universe, you don't really have a role in that. The Heroic Kingdom and the Blue Chamber Collective want to go to war, and as a member of the Holy Mission of Alat, you're trying to stop that. But before you even get there, the mission is attacked, and you have to find out what happened to Oliel and another guy. No matter what you do, the war still kicks off between the Blue Chamber and the Heroic Kingdom. I found this to be really bloody cool. You actually feel like a real person in that world, and shit happens without you being directly involved. So after rescuing Oliel and finding that one of your brothers has been shot by a poisoned bullet, you get into the meat of the game. Truth and Purpose and Hallowed Peacemaker are the longest and best of the quests for the Holy Mission, and it starts off with Oiel having doubts about the Holy Mission itself. Elat, not being an evil god, wants you to keep tabs on Oiel, and remember, there's a war going on, but, well, it doesn't involve you, so who cares? This quest has you determining the truth of Elat and your purpose in serving him. First, you head to Abasar to meet up with your waifu. She gives you 3 places to search to try and find answers about Elat. The only one that pans out is the Stone Titan Caves. You kill a boss and then pick up a stone tablet. A nice detail is that the tablet cannot be read by the player and instead must be taken to someone who knows the language. This could be a super involved, just give it to the Soroborian dude, he can do it. Ultimately, you learn that Elat was once human and used magic to ascend to a higher plane of existence. Oiel is not happy with that, as apparently after Elat ascended, the various Chaos Beasts attacked. Oops. The stone tablet mentioned that there was also a religious war. The Cabal of the Five Winds was in conflict with Elat. They wanted to maintain control over society, and Elat wanted humanity to find their own destiny. The Cabal didn't want to lose power and thus turned Elat's magic against himself. Elat fills in more details and says that he almost died, but used his indomitable will to not die, but instead ascend. However, his physical body was destroyed, and from that came Coas monsters that were supposed to kill him, but Elat was already dead and a god now, so the Chaos Beast decided to just murder the planet. Go figure. So before learning these major revelations, Oiel decided to whine to everyone about how terrible Elat was, and thus now you gotta deal with some rebel priests. You know, waifu, you're on thin ice. You can kill these rebel priests, or you can use speech to convince them to come back to the fold. As good guy GeneralLotz, I of course bring them back to Elat's light, and if you get the good ending, you get a pretty good promotion, and you will get another boon from Elat. Oh yeah, there's a war going on. Elat wants to create a ceasefire, and most people have agreed, but some bastards have been torturing people. The first part of this quest is to save some agents that have been captured. After this, you have to talk to a few members of the Blue Chamber leadership. You convince Risa Aberdeen with some pocket change. Don't give her the writ of tribal favor, as you will need it to convince another leader. Next, you will need to fight a boss called Sigurd Battleborn. He is a dick, and you can either give him a special stone or beat the shit out of him. The funny part is that, unlike in Skyrim, you're not limited to your fists. Oh no, you can shoot him a lot, and it just pisses him off. This bastard makes some of the real monsters look easy. Eventually, you fill him with a forest of arrows and he accepts the peace negotiations. So now you can go to Abasar and try to get them to come to terms. But there is a coup in progress. For a game that is primarily about exploration and combat, the story is remarkably good here. The original leaders of the Heroic Kingdom have become incapacitated, and your old friend Yazan is at the head of the coup. The Heroic Kingdom does have some legitimate grievances, but if you select the right dialogue, you can convince Yazan to stand down and side with you, and he will side with you against a character named Serene. She plays a role in a different faction quest. Her boss fight is pretty tough, but doable. Then the game gets even more fucking awesome. So, the Queen of the Heroic Kingdom has been poisoned with a mark of Nurgle, a super horrible poison that is 25% different. Elat cannot save her, and if she dies, the war between the Heroic Kingdom and the Blue Chamber will continue. You get 2 different choices. You can sacrifice yourself to save her, and the outcome is kinda crap. You get a life drain, and at stage 3, you die permanently. If you choose not to sacrifice yourself, then the game gets even more awesome. So, you learned how Elat became a god. He simply had the will to survive. Well, the Queen of the Heroic Kingdom is apparently as willful as Elat, and so if you choose not to sacrifice yourself, the Queen ascends to be a god. Holy crap! You gotta save the Queen, so just make her a god, I guess. The dialogue even reflects how weird and awesome that is. And Elat is like, yeah, it's a little extreme, but what are you gonna do? Like with Elat, this unleashes horrible chaos beasts, and thus the final battle goes down in Monsoon, and you and the forces of Elat have to join forces to shoot arrows into their faces. And the plot concludes with the Queen of the Heroic Kingdom becoming that city's god, and peace is declared throughout the land. The end. For a little game made in Quebec, you have about as open-ended of a game as Fallout New Vegas itself. The game has all the hallmarks of passionate developers: good music, tight and varied gameplay, excellent writing, and a story that is remarkably deep for what it is. Imagination is what really makes this game stand out from the multitude. They give you an ending where someone becomes a god. The various factions are not just elves and dwarves, and the game world, while not idyllic, well, you gotta have somebody to kill, is not unrelentingly dark. Every leader character isn't a backstabbing, duplicitous bastard, and the various high-level entities are nice and care about humanity. The Coas beasts have a nice and different backstory from Warhammer. I'm looking at you, Dragon Age. The Fade, really? For a game that can be tough, it's remarkably happy, and that is a rare thing these days. As you would expect, this game reached the lofty heights of Alpha Prime, and I most assuredly cannot recommend it enough. And so this is GeneralLotz wishing you good Medal of Honor, Allied Assault, and good Batman Arkham Asylum, or whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and please consider leaving a like or a comment, as the algorithm desires your soul. And I want to thank all those fans who have supported this channel, both past and present.